The captured journal, the Zephyrian battlecruiser Nexus Prime, drifted through the debris field of what had once been Kepler Station. Among the twisted metal and shattered glass, the salvage teams worked methodically, collecting anything of value. From the human outpost they had just conquered, Commander Zara Vex stood on the observation deck, her silver eyes scanning the wreckage below. The humans had fought harder than expected, their makeshift defenses holding out for 3 days against superior firepower. It was impressive, in a primitive sort of way. "Your Excellency," came a voice behind her. Lieutenant Kef approached, carrying a small collection of human artifacts. "We've recovered their data cores and personal effects. Most are damaged, but this survived intact." He held out a leather-bound book, its pages yellowed and worn. Zara took it, feeling the strange texture of the organic material. The humans still used paper. How quaint. "What is it?" she asked, opening to the first page. Strange markings covered the paper in neat rows. Human writing, she realized. A personal journal, we believe, belonged to one of their soldiers. Marcus Webb, according to the identification we found with it. Zara nodded absently, already absorbed in trying to decipher the alien script. Her translation implant kicked in, slowly converting the symbols into meaning. Day 1. Arrived at Kepler Station today. The coffee here tastes like recycled engine coolant, but at least the view is spectacular. You can see 3 different nebulae. From the observation lounge. She paused. This wasn't military intelligence or tactical data. It was ... personal thoughts. Mundane observations about coffee and scenery. Why would a soldier write such things? Day 15. Got a letter from home today. Mom says the apple trees are blooming early this year. I can almost smell them from here. Funny how space makes you notice the little things you took for granted. Zara found herself drawn into the simple words. The human wrote about his family, his fears, his hopes. There was no strategic value in any of it, yet she couldn't stop reading. Day 23. Saw a Zephyrian patrol ship today through the telescope. Sleek, beautiful design. Makes our station look like a floating junkyard. I wonder what they think of us. If they think of us at all. Her breath caught. This Marcus Webb had seen her people's ships and found them beautiful. Not threatening or terrifying beautiful. When had anyone described Zephyrian technology in aesthetic terms rather than military ones? Day 45. Jenkins asked me why I keep writing in this thing. Told him it helps me remember who I am when everything else feels like it's falling apart. War has a way of making you forget the person you used to be. Zara closed the journal, her hands trembling slightly. She had read soldier reports before, captured communications filled with tactical assessments and strategic concerns. But this was different. This was a window into the human soul, raw and unfiltered. "Commander?" Kef asked, noticing her distraction. "Dismissed," she said quietly. "I need to study this further." As her lieutenant left, Zara reopened the journal. Something about the human's words had stirred something in her that she didn't understand. For the first time in her military career, she found herself questioning not just human capabilities, but human nature itself, understanding the enemy 3. Days passed before Zara could bring herself to read more of Marcus Webb's journal. Each entry revealed layers of humanity she had never considered. The humans weren't just a species to be conquered. They were individuals with dreams, fears, and connections that transcended the battlefield. Day 67. Today marks 2 months since. I've seen Earth. Sometimes I dream about walking through the park near my apartment, feeding the ducks by the pond. Such a simple thing, but it feels like the most important thing in the universe. Right now. Zara set the journal down and walked to her private quarters viewport. The stars looked different now, knowing that somewhere among them was a blue world, where humans fed waterfowl in parks. The image was so alien to her militaristic upbringing, yet so achingly beautiful. Day 89. The new recruits arrived today. Kids, really. Barely 18, some of them. They look at veterans like me with such admiration, not knowing that half the time I'm just as scared as they are. But fear isn't the opposite of courage. It's courage's shadow. She had to pause at that line. In Zephyrian military doctrine, fear was weakness to be eliminated. Yet this human spoke of it as something natural, even necessary. How could a species that acknowledged fear fight so fiercely? Day 102. Received word that the Zephyrians are advancing toward our sector. Command says we need to prepare for siege. Conditions. I've been thinking about what I want to say if I don't make it home. Not the big, important things, those are obvious. But the small stuff. Like how proud I am of my sister for becoming a teacher. How I never told Dad that his pancakes were actually better than Mom's. How I wish I'd learned to play guitar like I always said I would. Zara felt an unexpected tightness in her chest. This human was preparing for death, possibly at her people's hands, and his thoughts were of family, of love, of regret for dreams unfulfilled. Where was the hatred she expected? The calls for vengeance against the Zephyrian Empire? Day 118. The siege has begun. They hit us with their plasma cannons today, and the whole station shook like a leaf in a hurricane. But you know what? Henderson started singing that old song, "We'll Meet Again," and soon half the crew was joining in. Even in the face of death, humans find ways to create beauty. I think that's what makes us human. The journal slipped from Zara's hands. She had been present during that bombardment, had given the orders for those plasma strikes. Yet here was the perspective from the other side, not of military personnel scrambling for cover, but of people finding solace in song while their world fell apart around them. For the first time in her career, Commander Zara Vex began to understand the true nature of her enemy. They weren't just tactically unpredictable or technologically stubborn. They were something far more dangerous. They were hope personified, creativity incarnate, love made manifest in the darkness of space. Day 124. If someone finds this journal, after I'm gone, I want them to know that we didn't fight because we hated our enemies. We fought because we loved we were protecting. There's a difference, and it's the most important difference in the universe. Zara closed the journal and stared at her reflection in the dark viewport. Somewhere in the depths of space, the Zephyrian fleet continued its inexorable advance toward Earth. But for the first time, she wondered if they truly understood what they were trying to conquer. The weight of words Commander Zara Vex had not slept well in days. The journal lay on her desk like an accusation, its worn leather cover seeming to pulse with unspoken truths. She had read it cover to cover twice now, and each reading only deepened. Her confusion, the morning briefing with her senior staff, proceeded as usual. Intelligence reports, tactical assessments, casualty figures all, delivered with the clinical precision that had made the Zephyrian military the most feared force in the galaxy. But Zara found herself distracted, her mind wandering to a young human who wrote about duck ponds and pancakes. Commander? Admiral Thane's voice cut through her reverie. Your assessment of the human defensive capabilities? A single quotes read ... resourceful, she said carefully. More so than our initial intelligence suggested. Resourceful is one word for it, Admiral Thane replied, his tone dismissive. Desperately clinging to obsolete tactics is another. Their resistance will crumble once we reach their homeworld. Day 89. The new recruits arrived today. Kids, really. Marcus Webb's words echoed in her mind. Those obsolete tactics were being employed by children who should have been in schools, not battlefields. After the briefing, Zara retreated to her quarters and opened the journal again. She had marked certain passages, Words that seemed to burn themselves into her consciousness. Day 134. Lost 3 good people today. Rodriguez, Chun, and young Tommy Morrison. Tommy was going to be a father. His wife is due next month. I helped write the letter to her, but what do you say? How do you explain that someone who was laughing at your joke in the morning is gone by evening? Zara set the journal down and accessed her military records. 3 confirmed kills from the Kepler station engagement, designated as enemy personnel 7, 12, and 15. Numbers in her report. But to this Marcus Webb, they had been Rodriguez, Chun, and Tommy Morrison. One of them was going to be a father. She pulled up the tactical recordings from the battle. Their timestamp, 14 hours, 32 minutes, and 7 seconds. A direct hit on the station's eastern habitat module. Clean, efficient, textbook precision. She had commended the gunner for his accuracy. Day 135. Held a memorial service. For the ones we lost. We don't have much in the way of ceremony out here, but Henderson played his harmonica and we shared stories. Rodriguez made the best coffee in 3 sectors. Chun could fix anything with spare parts and determination. Tommy ... Tommy believed. We were making the universe safer for his unborn child. The weight of the journal seemed to increase in her hands. These weren't enemy casualties. They were people with names, with stories, with loved ones who would grieve their loss. How many memorial services had her orders created? How many unborn children would grow up without fathers because of her precision strikes? Day 140. I've been thinking about the Zephyrians a lot lately. Their empire spans hundreds of worlds. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their military is unstoppable. So why do they want to conquer us? What could we possibly have that they need? Maybe it's not about what we have. Maybe it's about what we represent. Zara paused at that entry. What did humans represent? From a strategic standpoint, they were a minor species on the galactic periphery. Their worlds held no rare resources. Their technology offered no advantages. Yet Marcus Webb seemed to think there was something more at stake. Day 142. I figured it out. We represent choice. The Zephyrians have built their empire on order, on everyone knowing their place and staying in it. But humans? We're chaos. We're the species that looks at a perfectly ordered universe and says, thanks, but we'll make our own way. We're proof that there's another path, and that scares them more than any weapon we could build. The journal fell from Zara's nerveless fingers. In a few simple sentences, this human soldier had articulated something that all of Zephyrian military intelligence had missed. The war wasn't about resources or territory. It was about the fundamental nature of existence itself. She retrieved the journal with shaking hands and continued reading. Day 145. If I don't make it through this, I hope whoever finds this understands that we're not fighting for conquest or glory. We're fighting for the right to be beautifully, chaotically, imperfectly human. We're fighting for duck ponds and pancakes, for guitar lessons never taken and songs sung in the dark. We're fighting for the right to choose our own mistakes. Commander Zara Vex, decorated officer of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet, sat in her sterile quarters and wept. For the first time in her life, she understood what they were truly trying to destroy. The breaking point, the journal, had become Zara's obsession. She carried it with her everywhere, its weight a constant reminder of the human perspective she had never considered. The final entries were approaching, and she dreaded reading them, knowing they would likely end with Marcus Webb's death. Day 151. The final assault begins tomorrow. The Zephyrians have given us an ultimatum: surrender or be destroyed. Command has decided to fight. I can't say I disagree. Some things are worth dying for, and the right to remain human is one of them. Zara remembered that ultimatum. She had been the one to deliver it, her image broadcast across all frequencies to the doomed station. The humans had rejected it without hesitation, something that had puzzled her tactical mind. Why choose death over subjugation? Now she understood. Day 152. They're hitting us with everything they have. The station is falling apart around us, but morale is surprisingly high. Martinez started a betting pool on how long we can hold out. I'd put my money on 4 hours. Optimistic, I know, but I've seen what humans can do when they have their backs against the wall. 4 hours. The battle had lasted 6. Even facing certain death, the humans had exceeded their own expectations. Zara had been impressed by their tenacity at the time. Now she was awed by their spirit. Day 152, final entry. This is it. They've breached the main hull, and we're down to emergency power. I can hear their boarding parties in the corridors. I want to use these last minutes to say something important. Zara's hands trembled as she turned to the final page. To whoever finds this journal. My name is Marcus Anthony Webb. I was born on Earth in a small town called Cedar Rapids. I loved baseball, terrible movies, and my mother's apple pie. I never learned to play guitar, never traveled to see the Northern Lights, never told Sarah Martinez how I felt about her. I was, in most ways, an ordinary human being. But here's the thing about ordinary human beings. We're capable of extraordinary things when it matters. We're capable of love that transcends death, hope that survives despair, and courage that grows stronger in the face of fear. We're capable of finding beauty in the darkest places and creating meaning from chaos. If you're reading this, it probably means my species lost this battle. Maybe we'll lose the war too. But I want you to know that we didn't lose because we were weak or primitive or inferior. We lost because we chose to be human rather than survive as something else. That's not defeat. That's victory of the highest order. I hope someday you understand what I mean. I hope someday you find something worth fighting for that has nothing to do with conquest or power. I hope you discover the joy of feeding ducks in a park, or the comfort of a loved one's terrible pancakes, or the magic of a song shared in the darkness. Be well, whoever you are. And remember, being human isn't about the species you're born into. It's about the choices you make when those choices matter most. Marcus A. Webb, defender of humanity. Zara closed the journal and sat in silence for a long time. Outside her viewport, the stars continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the small tragedy that had unfolded on a forgotten station. But she was not indifferent. She could not be, not anymore. She activated her communication console and sent a priority message to Fleet Command. The words came slowly, each one a betrayal of everything she had been taught to believe. Admiral Thane, this is Commander Vex. I am requesting immediate reassignment from the Earth campaign. I believe our intelligence regarding human capabilities has been insufficient. We need to reconsider our approach. The response came within minutes. Request denied, Commander. You will continue with your assigned mission. The Earth campaign proceeds as scheduled. Zara stared at the message, then at the journal in her hands. Marcus Webb had made his choice when it mattered most. Now it was time for her to make hers. She began to type a new message, knowing it would likely be her last as a Zephyrian officer. But for the first time in her life, she was choosing to be human. The choice to be human, the court-martial, was swift and decisive. Commander Zara Vex, decorated officer of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet, was found guilty of treason, insubordination, and conduct unbecoming an officer. The evidence was overwhelming. She had transmitted Earth's defensive positions to human resistance cells, sabotaged 3 critical supply convoys, and finally, in an act of ultimate betrayal, she had stolen a fast courier ship and fled to human space. Now, she sat in a holding cell. Aboard the human vessel Defiance, Marcus Webb's journal clutched in her hands. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was now the prisoner, waiting to learn the fate that awaited her at human hands. The cell door opened, and a middle-aged human woman entered. She wore the simple uniform of the Human Defense Corps, her graying hair pulled back in a practical bun. Her eyes, when they met Zara's, held a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "I'm Captain Patricia Morrison," the woman said, settling into the chair across from Zara. "I understand you requested to speak with someone in command." "Morrison," Zara repeated, the name triggering a memory. Tommy Morrison. He was going to be a father. The captain's expression shifted, surprise replacing wariness. "You knew my son?" "Not personally," Zara said quietly, holding up the journal. "But I know him through the words of a friend. Marcus Webb wrote about him, about how he believed he was making the universe safer for his unborn child." Captain Morrison's eyes fixed on the journal, recognition dawning. "Marcus Webb, we recovered. His body from Kepler Station. He was Tommy's squad leader, his friend." Her voice caught slightly. "We never found his personal effects." "This survived," Zara said, extending the journal toward her. "It should be returned to his family." Morrison took the journal with reverent hands, her fingers tracing the worn leather cover. "You read it?" "Yes." "And that's why you're here?" "Why?" "You betrayed your own people?" Zara was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. "Your son's friend taught me something my people never understood. He taught me that being human isn't about biology. It's about choice. The choice to love rather than hate, to create rather than destroy, to hope rather than despair. And you chose to be human. I chose to try." Zara met the captain's eyes. "I know what my people are planning. The final assault on Earth, the orbital bombardment that will reduce your cities to ash. I can help you stop it, but you need to trust me." Captain Morrison opened the journal, reading a few lines from a random page. Her eyes welled with tears as she recognized the voice of her son's friend, preserved in faded ink and weathered paper. "Marcus always said the measure of a person wasn't where they started, but where they chose to go when the path got hard." She closed the journal and looked at Zara. "You've traveled a very hard path to get here." "The hardest part isn't behind me," Zara replied. "It's ahead. If your people accept my help, I'll be helping you destroy the only home I've ever known. If they don't, I'll have sacrificed everything for nothing." "What do you want to return?" "Nothing," Zara said without hesitation. "Marcus Webb didn't fight for reward or recognition. He fought because it was right. I want to do the same." "Captain." Morrison stood, the journal tucked carefully under her arm. "I'll need to discuss this with the council. But Zara ... She paused at the door. "Thank you for bringing him home." Alone again, Zara closed her eyes and thought about the young human who had changed everything with his simple words. Marcus Webb would never see the victory his sacrifice would help achieve. He would never meet his friend's child, never learn that his words had converted an enemy into an ally, never know that his belief in the power of human choice had saved his species. But in the vast silence of space, between the stars that had witnessed the birth and death of countless civilizations, something new was being born. It wasn't human, wasn't Zephyrian, but something that transcended both. It was the choice to be better than what you were born to be, to reach beyond your programming and grasp something greater. 3 days later, the Zephyrian fleet arrived at Earth to find their target defended by an impossible alliance. Human ingenuity, combined with Zephyrian technology, guided by the wisdom found in a simple leather journal. The invasion force, expecting to face a primitive species armed with crude weapons, instead encountered a coordinated defense that seemed to anticipate their every move. The war that followed would be remembered as the conflict that changed everything. Not because it was won or lost, but because it proved that evolution wasn't just biological, it was spiritual. And sometimes The most profound transformations began with a single choice to see your enemy as something more than an enemy. Marcus. Webb's journal would eventually be displayed in the Museum of Human Heritage, but not before its pages were digitized and shared across the galaxy. His words, written in the shadow of death, became a beacon of hope for species everywhere who believed that there was more to existence than mere survival. And in the end, that was the most human thing of all the belief that words could change the universe, one reader at a time.